Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lindsey and today I'm sharing with you guys my top tips and tricks and techniques for long wearing makeup that you can wear under a mask. And I'm not going to say that it's not going to wear off, because here's the kicker here. I watched a couple videos about makeup for under a mask and I tried some of their techniques and personally they did not work for me. So I tried and experimented a couple things and then finally found a really nice way to keep your makeup looking great while you're still wearing a mask. So I'm really excited to share with you guys these tips because they helped me a ton and I hope they help you as well. Before we get started, if you guys aren't already subscribed, I would love to have you, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you find it helpful or enjoyable or both at any point. But let's get right into the makeup. Alright guys, let's get into my tips and tricks. First, starting with skincare slash sunscreen. I really recommend using a tinted or lightly tinted sunscreen because it gives you a little bit of coverage, so you're going to be able to use less foundation while just using an all-in-one sunscreen slash tint product. My two favorites are the First Aid Beauty Weightless Mineral one. This is like it doesn't have a ton of coverage, it just has a little bit of peachiness, which is good to color correct as well. And then the Ilia Super Serum Skin Tint, this one has more coverage to it. So if you have more like severe redness, acne scarring, stuff to cover, you might want to go with something more full coverage like this one. I'm actually going to be using two different primers today. I'm going to use the Bite Beauty. This is the normal to dry skin change maker. So one of my favorite tips I think that I have for you guys today is to use something to color correct if you do have something that you feel like needs color correcting. For me, my number one skin concern is redness, so I like to go in with the NYX color correcting primer. This is the green shade. They also have a yellow and a purple, I believe, which are great if you need some brightening. The reason why I really love this tip is because it's going to allow you to use a lot less foundation. And because of that, you know, in general, when you are wearing less makeup, when it comes off, it's not going to be as obvious and it just looks a lot more natural on the skin. But anyway, I'm just going to squeeze a little bit of this. This is really pretty. It actually has like a bit of a pearliness to it, but nothing too visible. And you guys will tell once I put this on how much the redness in my skin is neutralized. It's awesome. And also, if you just have minor redness, you could still use something like this and just use it where you get red. For me, it's just like my whole cheek area though, so I just slather it on. So now you should be able to tell how it diminished the majority of the redness in my skin. Moving on, next I'm going to take some concealer. This is the Kosas Revealer, and I recommend to spot conceal before you do a foundation as well, because it's the same reason why we use the color correcting primer. You're just going to be able to use less foundation. This is the shade 02. I'm just doing this on my darker sort of discoloration, acne scarring. Thankfully I don't have a lot of active acne nowadays, but I still have the scars to cover. And usually I do get like really red right here, so I'll put a little extra there. And with that, I'm gonna use my trusted sponge. I also like using a sponge because it applies a thinner layer of product, which is our goal here. Next, for foundation, I would recommend one that you're really familiar with and you know wears well on your skin. My favorite is the Bite Beauty Changemaker foundation. This lasts really well on my skin. I love how it looks. It's just so natural looking but gives me a good amount of coverage. So something thin, long wearing, nothing too dewy, because any foundation that has a lot of oils in it or is really dewy on the skin, it's just gonna rub right off, which is not what we're going for. So I'm gonna squeeze a little bit out. This is the shade L20. I'm just gonna start with a small amount of this. We could always build it up if we need to. Because I did that color correcting and concealer, I feel like I have so much less to cover now. So now I really only need a little bit of the foundation. I feel like I always used to do, when I was younger, really heavy foundation, full coverage foundation, because I needed like to cover a lot of my redness, but it always ends up looking cakey. Like honestly, no matter what foundation, if you use a lot of it, it doesn't look the best in the long run. Once I figured out that you can like spot conceal, neutralize stuff, my world changed. Skin looked way better and my texture like is way less enhanced. Now for the nose area, which particularly for me is where it rubs off the most. I think with my face shape, my nose is just all up on that thing at all times. I've watched a lot of videos like this. I mentioned in the intro that they have these tips, but they do not work for me because I feel like using a really matte foundation, using a ton of powder, it still comes off on my nose, and when it does, it looks even worse because it has, like when you have powder and then the foundation gets rubbed off, I'm not sure if you guys will know what I'm talking about, but it leaves just like this sort of like patch and it just looks super obvious. But I find that when you don't use a ton of powder and something were to rub off, it kind of just looks a lot more natural because it's just the foundation without another layer of powder on it. So what I do specifically for my nose is I actually take a clean side of my sponge and actually remove I look crazy, remove the majority of the makeup from it, so it's just a really light layer. And then I take the sponge that has a tiny bit of product on it from the rest of our face, and then I just go over that, so now it has just an extremely thin layer of product on it while still having coverage. So if it were to come off, it's gonna look really good when it does, and it's not gonna be like super full coverage everywhere else and just like this spot of no coverage. For my concealer, I'm gonna mix 2 Cover FX Power Play shades, and light one and the white shade for a really brightening effect. And since I have no self-tan on, your girl's very pale right now. I'm just gonna take a little bit of this. And I usually just do like 1 dot of the white. And then I'm gonna blend this in with my sponge. I wouldn't recommend doing any like highlighting on your nose, again, because for me, that's where it rubs off the most. So I just try to keep that area of the face super minimal in terms of product. I'm gonna take a little bit of the white just on the center of my forehead. And I'm gonna bring it down a little bit, but I'm gonna stop about halfway down my nose. Next for powder, I'm gonna take my Ilia Soft Focus Finishing Powder on a small Real Techniques setting brush. I'm gonna load all sides of my brush here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and set my under eyes with this. And I am gonna bring it down the sides of my nose here, but I'm not gonna put anything on my nose yet, and I'll explain that in a little bit. Also taking this to lightly set the rest of my face except for my nose. So I am setting the sides of my nose and the sort of top half right between the brows, but I'm not going to set this tip ball of my nose because, as I explained earlier, it's gonna rub off, and when it does, I find that when you have powder on, it looks a lot worse. And also, after it rubs off, it's really easy to fix. When you don't have powder, you could just use like your clean fingers, you could bring a sponge. I also recommend bringing a powder foundation or a concealer. Personally, I have a powder foundation, so all I have to do is like fix it up and it looks completely fine again. And I also feel it looks better when I don't have powder on my nose already. And also you could just bring concealer and redo it and you don't have to powder anything. So that's the tip I feel like works for me a ton. You could also do on any other part of your face you feel like wears off. But for me, that's the only place that I really get like a lot of makeup removal. For my bronzer, I'm going to take the Hourglass Nude Bronze Light Bronzer and bronze up. I would recommend not using any other cream products on your face because for the same reason, it just rubs off easier. But if you do, I mean, you can go for it. I feel like I've worn cream products and it wasn't that bad. Depending on the type of mask you have, it doesn't really like touch that portion of your face a lot, but I do find powders just wear better on me. I'm just bronzing up my face here. I feel like bronzer just like changes everything. Next for blush, I'm gonna grab the shimmery side of the Cover FX Monochromatic Blush Duo in Soft Peach and put this on the back of my cheekbones. Because I do have like a rounder, ovalish face, I like to keep my blush back there because it gives my, lifts it up a little bit more. And for highlight, the Hourglass Ethereal Light Ambient Lighting Setting Powder, which I use as a highlight because it's really subtle and pretty. And I'm just using a Bodyography Pro fan brush. If you guys were wondering why I find that the using like a lot of matte products and like really powdering or baking the nose is because when you have powder on and then you also have this thing covering your face, all this heat and humidity is just gonna like melt the powder right into your skin. So it's basically just gonna become like another layer of product, like foundation on your skin, because it just melts in and it's sort of just sitting there. So it's not really doing a ton of stuff. It's just constantly exposed to that like heat and humidity. Personally for me, I get very sweaty and it doesn't work, you know? I wish it would, but it did not. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and finish up my eyes and lips and we'll be back. All right guys, here is our finished look. I zoomed you in so you can get a closer look at how the skin looks. This is also a great routine if you have very textured skin, because I feel like personally for me and my texture, this is like, it doesn't accentuate it at all. It looks so good. So very fresh, natural, super lightweight. When it does wear off, it's not gonna look crazy, so see me back out. All right guys, that was it for today's video. I hope you found this helpful and enjoyable. If you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you aren't already subscribed, I would love to have you, but thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.